So, welcome everybody, and this is the introductory slide talking about the multifunction cardiography, and it's really a deep machine learning AI-based purpose-built to save lives and also lower costs. MCG system is accurate, objective, and the system is based on 100% evidence, ethical, responsible, and purposeful system design, verification, and validation to make sure that the system really works in real life. So in our world, our philosophy is that impossible is not a fact, it's an opinion. And we have gone through really the three stages of development from the beginning, were ridiculed, and then followed with violent opposition. Will really some establishment part really came after us, try to get rid of us from the market, and then now people are beginning to accept. Oh yeah, this is self-evident. So we've gone through all that. That before we go into the nitty-gritty details of the clinical applications, I just like to talk about general science, the mathematics behind it, physics and the physiology behind this. And we believe that the 130-year-old EKG is obsolete. And we've known that for a long time through our years of research and data mining, that we know that EKG in acute stage diseases, including obstructive coronary disease and acute MI, and some better for some arrhythmias, ventricular or atrial arrhythmias. The accuracies of EKG is very, very poor. In our book, from our meta-analysis of hundreds of thousands of patients' data, EKG is probably at best 30%, and most of the time it's a 12, 30, 15% accurate in making an accurate diagnosis. I think that's the reason why, in general, general practitioners, internal medicine, primary care physicians, their overall diagnostic accuracy is about 12% because they don't have the right tools. So MCG is a complete departure from the traditional EKG, and MCG or multifunction cardiogram takes a system theory approach to the mathematical model based on Euler Lagrange coordinate, which we show the graph here. The Euler is the x coordinate, Lagrange is and y coordinate. When you combine these two mathematical coordinates, you can study the cardiovascular system as a whole to understand what intricate information that's involved in this. We use a power estimate, and it turns out the detailed mapping of the power distribution, the relationship of the various power models, mathematical models, give us information otherwise not available conventionally. And we use, of course, the mathematics of Laplace transformation. And the reason we do that because MCG adopts the system theory to look at the interaction of the internal external factors as a whole, to extract as much information as possible to study the cardiovascular system. And by the way, this is a very kind of like similar to I don't know if anybody heard about the LIGO detector, which is a detector that placed in Washington State and Louisiana. They use the differential wave detector from the deep space, like a big, gigantic black hole, the waveform to understand, to study the mass, the extent details of black hole, gravitational forces of black hole. This didn't exist in 1960s or 70s or even the late 20th century. So this is we are using probably the most advanced technology known mathematically and in physiology, electrophysiology, to detect the complexity of the cardiovascular system. And one person name I want to mention, in addition to Lagrange and Euler, is a Professor Nobel winner. His control theory and actually is the basis to establish computational systems electrophysiology and applying systems engineering approach. So this is the graphic presentation of what we do, and all these lines and curves and all that belong to various different functions called multifunction. Each function represents different relationship. Otherwise, the other functions does not represent. So MCG actually is beyond the conventional X, Y, Z, and time domain. It's more than that. It's a now in our world. It's six dimensions and the 12 phases, and so it's a multi-dimensional, multi-physic type analysis. And here are the mathematical functions we use, and which I don't want to elaborate too much, and because it's going to take multiple hours of lecture for each function to understand the details and what it contributes to detecting electrophysiology of any organ, including heart, of course, number one for the brain, and any organ that has bioelectricity is fair game. So in this case, I'm just giving you the longest formula here. It's called a phase angle shift, and basically it's a arctangent of the transfer functions, imaginary and real, or you can look at it as the cross function, cross power spectrum and auto power spectrum, and of the function also in imaginary and real numbers. So it's all complex mathematics. So what does that ever mean? Clinically, what it means is that it's exquisite way to look at it. The two leads, we're using X, Y, X is a V5, and Y is a lead V2, and treat them as two clocks. If they're ticking in sync at the same time, and you're going to see the whole plot from a phase angle shift, it's straight one single line. If one frequency band is out of sync due to ischemia, some sort of infection, or some sort of myocardial infarct, or even trauma or surgical trauma, and you're going to see a peak. And that is a major or some abnormality, either affecting the left side or right side of the heart. That's why we can measure this to look at ischemia, look at various causes of myocardial dysfunction, and it's one of the best discoveries that we're very proud of. And the other one is the next one. It's a simpler function. It's basically inverse of transfer functions, which we'll talk about transfer function on top. It's another function called impulse response. Impulse response is almost like you're sending one pulse of high energy ultrasound hit the hull of a submarine, right? If the submarine, the hull is built with very poor quality steel, is going to violently react to the impact. But if it's a very stiff, very high quality steel, it's going to hit, boom, then it's going to stop. So we can actually measure the waveforms and responses of the impact and the response receiving end, both sides alternately, to look at the quality of the, in this case, myocardium, as a result of various like a hypertensive heart disease, including causing the myocardium hypertrophy, which the compliance will decrease. We're looking at a major myocardium compliance, and if the patient has myocarditis, the compliance will be increased. Or somebody had acute myocardial infarct, compliance also will be increased. So as you can see, we can talk hours and hours discuss the discovery from these functions over the years. But these two examples should give everybody some concept, and why MCG is different, also why MCG is so important. I want you to know that we discovered a new world. Okay, this is a new universe of computational systems electrophysiology using this mathematical approach is literally the new ways to look at how we extract information from cardiovascular system to help your patients at bedside. So this is the complex map of what MCG really does in real time. And we're the first ones in the world created the system. And 25 years ago, and people like Norbert Renford said, that's impossible. What are you doing? This is too complicated. There's no way you can get it done. Well, I'm happy to say that we got it done. And actually, the system really works. So basically, if you look at the bottom, we'll collect the data from lead 2 V5 and record each test at 82 seconds. We'll repeat this 3 or 4, maybe 5 times, and make sure it's reproducible, good quality, and make sure that the patient doesn't waste time to have to come back to retest it again. Then the data is amplified, digitized, encrypted, then transmitted through the internet and to our data center. That's where we do the decryption and the fast Fourier transformation, actually discrete fast Fourier transformation, turn from a time domain into a frequency domain. Then we do the 6 mathematical transformations. And this is empirically derived. We discovered the best way to digitize and optimize and clean up the sample. And we used the best of its kind, in-kind, of digital signal processing method to clean up the signals to make sure the signals are so pristine, 99.999% void of noise. Then the data then is mathematically transformed, the 6 mathematical transform informations, and from the data about the 5.12 seconds each segment, 16 segments, and of 4 or 5 tests in the same session, is then further processed through a neural network that we build based on the neural network framework, and to analyze, to parse out the intricate details of each patient's individual abnormal expressions. Those abnormal expressions then compare with the database we have. Now it's more than 100,000. It's way more than 100,000. When we created this slide, it was years back. And so this is basically the basis for pattern recognition for the AI, for the deep neural network, deep learning neural network, to pick up patterns and to recognize if it belongs to abnormal, then what type of abnormality, whether it's due to ischemia, due to metabolic heart disease, due to hypertensive heart disease, or combination of which, or mixture of those. Then that information is all based on a 100% evidence-based big data container. Use that data, we extract the training sets, and use the training sets, we set up the neural network and the matrices, use that matrices, different patterns to do differential diagnosis, come up with a report. So we have created the system that can actually look at a new set of data and use that new set of data to look at match the existing patterns in the data sets to come up with a suggested differential diagnosis, whether the patient has ischemia, whether ischemia is localized or globalized, and if the patient has other pathologies such as myocardial infarct, myocarditis, cardiomyopathy, or various arrhythmias, whether the patient has incipient arrhythmia or the AFib or ventricular arrhythmia before they're visible on 12 leads on the conventional EKGs, or they have some certain arrhythmia pattern can be reversible, or certain pattern are not reversible, and no matter what you do to the patient, especially if the diagnosis is wrong, like this poor plumber and had mercury poisoning. So in summary, the patient at your bedside, you use the device to collect data, and a few minutes of data, 4 or 5 different 5.12 test 16 segment test segments, sessions in a session, then the data transmitted through internet to the EMCG, the data center, perimeter data center. The data center then crunch the data, and even though it's very complicated because the speed of the computer memory and the GPUs, the CPUs, we can do this very, very rapidly, and literally during fraction of a second, and the reports generated in PDF form. In PDF form report, you can incorporate into any electronic health record or not. You can print it out, put in your printed record, and then they can use that to do your diagnosis. So the whole thing takes about 10 minutes. So this is the sample. We're creating a personal monitoring system that people can use this to actually monitor the patient at home. We can do that, and that is upcoming new device coming to the market. So the Premier technology has about multiple patents protected, but I don't believe patents is really something that important, because I believe the technology belongs to the masses, belongs to the people, and we're going to make it open source to researchers, to academics, to do research, and to further understanding this. The bottom line is that the patient MCG has multiple clinical applications for children age above 14 to adult, and also it can develop application for children younger than 14, and also can be developed for brains and other organs. So there are multiple opportunities to do research, to develop this further and clinical understanding, clinical applications. What we have done is just the beginning, and at least 25, actually 50. Now it's growing leaps and bounds, and our colleagues in Japan, in Europe, and in North America are looking at it very, very different ways to use. And one of which is coming up is to use this to detect the impact of chemotherapy for cancer patients, and also people have renal failure on dialysis, and so what's the best way to help them to live longer and do better, and so and things like that. And the women with heart disease now it's also coming up on board, because most women with heart diseases don't really have obstructive coronary disease. They rather have microvascular disease or metabolic heart disease that's not even detectable by the conventional methods. And so women's heart issue is coming on board, and we have some major supporters and major people coming on board to support us to develop this path and to save the lives of half of our population, women. So MCG has been used to really compare and contrast with the platinum standards of cardiology, so to make sure that what we report can be understood by the cardiologists, even though we understand that the interventional cardiology or catheterization for overwhelming majority cases are not necessary, because most of the cases people have cardiovascular disease are not obstructive disease. And we would like to believe that, but obstructive coronary disease is really a small fraction of all cardiovascular disease spectrum. And I'll give you one simple example: the plumber with mercury poisoning, and even the best institutions like Columbia University, after $1 million in 5 months, and the obsession towards obstructive coronary disease diagnosis is actually not helpful. Actually, it's hurting patients, and people die from that because of that. And that has to change. That's one of the reasons why we do MCG. We believe that we can do better, help physicians do much better diagnosis, so we can save our patients instead of line the pockets of interventional cardiologists, and what they can buy another Mercedes or BMW, 750,000 per patient, just to diagnostic workup, and it's just absurd. And I think it's time to make changes. And I urge you to be part of this so we can help the patient to do a better job. So, and this is just the beginning, and we're extremely excited about the future. And I welcome you to look at all the clinical trials we've conducted over the years, and the best quality platinum standard clinical trials. By the way, were conducted without any quid pro quo. All the investigators did the investigation of our clinical trials, the data. We didn't pay them a dime for it because, first of all, we're a small company. We don't have a multi-billion dollars to bribe everybody. And we told them that we have the data. You can use the data. You compare honestly, report honestly, whether the system works or not. And my job is to make sure that when we report this, a physician, a nurse, or a patient, a family can understand what the MCG is reporting, not a bunch of mathematics or a bunch of computer codes nobody understood. My job is to make sure that when we cross the Rubicon, when we report the patient's information from all the complex mathematics, is coming into human language that anybody can understand. And this is just the beginning. We can do much, much more. The future is very, very bright. I'm happy to report that we'll be part of this future with everybody. And so that's it. Here's our story. So questions?
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Shen. So which physicians would be the best ones for us to talk to about using this technology?
I would say, you can talk to a cross spectrum of people. You can talk to primary care physician like Dr. Darren Menard, and he's now a strong supporter of our technology, and he's using it in Louisiana. And if you want, I can give you. I think you have information. You can contact him. And others, Dr. Rainford, Norbert Rainford, and he's a strong supporter of our technology. He's been using it for years. He had a lot of experience. He's a cardiologist from that perspective. And you have people who were in functional medicine, like Thomas Salt, and in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and the suburbs of that. And he's also very strong. He's using that for early detection, primary lifestyle intervention to optimize patients. And since he's been using the technology, he has sent one single patient to catheterization. So haven't I. I've been treating my own patient's family for about 15, 20 years now, using MCG as the monitoring detection monitoring tool. I have sent a single patient to catheterization, and everybody's fine, and nobody has been hurt. And thank God we have no lawsuits because of that. So I believe that the guidelines are wrong. And if you ask me personally, I think the guidelines are crap. And I never follow them because they're not based on evidence. They're not based on basically a bunch of well-paid experts' opinion. And I just can't believe them. And that's another motivation for me to do this because I had to take the matter to my own hands because I feel that deeply, personally, professionally, we were misled by the academics, the so-called experts, and the medical societies, AMA, AHA, and ACC, all these alphabetic, organizations. They have basically done disservice to all of us. And so don't get me started. I feel very strongly about this. Yeah, so these are the guys you can talk to. And I have another physician been using this just right before the pandemic hit. And Dr. Nigel Harrison, he's actually, he has a private practice. Also, he also sees public hospital patients as well in his practice. He's on Isle of Man in middle of UK and Ireland, Scotland, in middle of Ireland, a little island. Actually, I think it's owned by the Queen or something. Kind of interesting. But all these guys, you can talk to them. They're cardiologists, primary care physicians, and they will share the experience with you. Also, if you have difficult cases to navigate using the technology, you can always talk to me. I'm available to assist.
Thank you.
Dr. Shen.
And then,
Yep, we're always excited to see what the MCG can do for not only physicians but for patients. So, would you say how hard is it for the physicians to learn how to read the reports?
Well, it's
Once they
actually I make the report as easy to read as possible. I mean, I think kind of my Japanese partners, we have a partner that called Fukuda Me, one of the Fukuda families. They've been making EKGs from the very beginning of time, and EKG machines. So they are making the flagship EKG machine, I think C800, into MCG EKG compatible. So they're installing our hardware into their flagship EKG machines, and they found our report much more easier to understand than the EKG report, because they believe the EKG report is a bunch of gibberish, and people really don't understand it. What is the ST segment elevation? What does it exactly what mean? What about the people have no ST segment elevation, still have myocardial infarct? So there's a lot of things, and when you have a bundle branch block, the whole EKG is uninterpretable throughout the window. So why bother with that? So they're beginning to realize that we have a much better interpretable, down to the earth, easy to understand technology that people can use. Also, we recently have developed the automated the eight categorization reporting. Looks like it's going to work, and the algorithm that I designed, put together, actually has shown can be done programmatically. So we're going to have that. We use add another layer of a neural network. It's called recurrent neural network. And with that done, the next thing in our future is to add reinforcement neural network to help physicians make better decisions, because we can probably use this to identify best in kind, evidenced, outcome-based, value-based treatment options for patients, instead of just send everybody to cath and or to some kind of defibrillator implantation or interventional diseases, 40,000 there, 100,000 there, and wasting a lot of money. And as everybody should know, that the COURAGE trial, and followed with this 10-year, $100 million ischemia trial, had definitively concluded that in cardiac intervention, there's no difference between medical treatment and interventional procedures, zero difference. And so why bother? And that's why I started doing sending patients to cath long time ago, and because we know better, because the way that we study data ourselves through the part of deep learning. On top of that, we also, from the most startling part of this is that the ischemia data, study data, after $100 million, 10 years, they discovered that there's about 13% to 15% patients from both arm of the study, both the interventional or non-interventional medical therapy, conservative medical therapy side, and develop MACE, sudden cardiac death, or major adverse cardiac events. So what's up there? And if the medical therapy, interventional therapy is so optimal, so good, why this happens? Why people still die? So I think that what we have now in hand, even practiced by the best institutions around the world, just inadequate, woefully inadequate. And just look at this again. I'm going back to this example. This poor plumber with mercury poisoning, and going through Columbia University, $1 million workup, and months of wasted time. In the end, he got nothing, absolutely nothing. A diagnosis which is cockamamie. They call it idiopathic cardiomyopathy. What is that? After $1 million? Really? That's totally unacceptable. We must do a better job. And MCG is the tip of the spear for that change.
Thank you, Dr. Shen. I have a question.
Yeah.
With the nuclear stress test and the MCG,
Right.
what is the difference?
Okay. Don't get me started. We did actually a clinical trial. We did a 3-way comparison, okay? Nuclear stress, MCG, angiography. We used the angiogram results as the final arbiter to look at the which system works, which system doesn't work. And so that was a triple blind study, and was just it blows your mind. The data was just so startling. I think that upset a lot of people as well, especially in the cardiology community, because we discovered that not only MCG is 3 times more accurate than nuclear stress test, and also specificity-wise, MCG is like 5 times more specific. Give you an example. The nuclear stress test overall specificity was about let me see, what's the number? Yeah. Yeah, was about 8%. Okay, 8%. That means 92% the cases that they called positive, and there's a big number of positive cases are considered false positive, and which is actually correct, because if you look at the 2 large studies, about 1 million cases, retrospective studies, systems review by Manish Patel from Duke University, and another one was studied by Premier, sponsored by Premier, over like some major cardiac centers, UCLA and I think Massachusetts General and Cleveland Clinic, Mount Sinai, and the false positive rate for from all the stress testing, including nuclear stress test, was about 60+%, 62% in fact. And our data also found out it's about that, even worse. So it's not surprising. And so MCG had a specificity about 90%, and nuclear stress test had 8%. Even worse for women. For women, it's only 3%. So women did even worse on nuclear stress test. So that means we're sending tons of people to angiogram unnecessarily because of the false positive nuclear stress test. And the angiogram is not exactly benign. It harms people. People can die from just an angiogram, even though I had a normal heart. And because of the trauma injury, people can suffer stroke and other complications because of the angiogram. So it's also very costly, very expensive. And the copay actually costs more than the MCG test cost. So why bother? And as I say, I keep saying that. I just don't bother with that anymore, because it's too expensive, too time consuming, dangerous, and costly. And nuclear stress test, in my book, is a technology that never worked. And it was hyped. Basically, if you compare the published data from nuclear stress test to real world data, the gap is just, the unbelievable gap. And how can you explain that? The only way to explain that, MCG, the nuclear stress test, only work for the academics who got paid by the industry and report otherwise. If you look at the real world, nuclear stress test failed. Doesn't work. But guess what? It gets a lot of money for the cardiologists, so they keep doing it. They try to do nuclear stress test on every patient who walks in the door, because guess what? They get paid. That's the only reason they're doing it. I think that's atrocious. I think that's actually criminal, if you ask me.
So about how many machines are scattered throughout the United States and across the world? Is this something that's easily accessible for patients?
Well, it's not easily accessible, and the reason is that we actually had an encounter with the establishment medicine when Nobel Rainford, remember, helps to get into the high mark Medicare. High market Medicare medical directors reviewed our technology data. Okay, they also questioned due diligence, dug really deep, and they found out our technology was just so superior. So they decided to come up with a policy, say, hey, okay, we'll pay for the MCG test, and about 270 in the beginning for each session. And but however, for 6 months after MCG test, we're not going to pay for stress nuclear, stress EKG, stress echo, and CT scans. And all the other tests, you have to get authorization. So you can imagine the pushback, because basically, MCG is replacing all the money-making tests out there, and which is really against the business interests of not only the industry but also the cardiologists. And so you have this explosion, firework of pushback from the cardiologists, ACC. I call them the card member holding ACC member, ACC card holding member of the society, and plus from lobbyists in Washington D.C. So as a result of that, every step we try to get out there, there was resistance from the insurance people, from Blue Cross, especially Blue Cross Blue Shield, by the way. And if you look at the letter, the rebuttal letter, and Darren Menard wrote, so it's not easy. It's been very challenging, but the tide has turned. The things are getting much, much better now for us. And now we have employers. They directly engage providers to provide them with better care. Whereas what the first tool they're asking to be adopted part of the diagnostic armamentarium is MCG, because they know we can help them save enormous amount of money, not only saving lives, but the important saving lives, the even more important, they're saying the bottom line can improve their profit margin. So, as you know, that overwhelming majority employers now have left the insurance game. They're dropped out from the major insurance companies like United Health or the Blue Cross Blue Shield for the United States, and the memberships. They're doing their own. They're self-insured. So MCG now has found into the market. But before that, we were struggling, trying to get out there. And so even that, we have a few hundred systems around the world and a few hundred systems in the United States. So yeah, we have people in Minnesota using it, people in New York, in California, in Florida, and increasing states, and in Texas. So yeah, in New Jersey. So yeah, people are beginning to pick up now. We're picking up a pace of adoption now. So we're from the very low adoption rate, early adoptions, until now at the called point of inflection point going forward. So yeah, you can find it actively practitioners actively using our technology. Actually used as the first line tool to early detect cardiovascular disease, to enable lifestyle optimization, or primary prevention, and better medical therapies. And MCG actually, in fact, can be used to measure the progress that the treatment is making. Again, for the mercury poisoning plumber, we actually measured the major functional improvement after the chelation therapy to get rid of the toxin and mercury in his system. So we can use that to not only early detect, but also monitor patients.
Thank you so much for all this information. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions that people will have going forward as we learn more about the MCG technology. So we'll get you some more questions as time goes by. Thank you.
I love questions, because the more questions you ask, the better understanding you have toward technology, better way to allow me to communicate with you. And so I'm learning from this as well. So it's a mutual learning process. Not only the machine is learning from us, we're learning from the machine, also learning from patients and our customers. And that's the only way for us to improve. For instance, the A category automation was really highly recommended and pushed by customers. So can you automate this so we don't have to try to do it ourselves, and sometimes we have busy and no time, or can make mistakes. So I said, okay, let's try it, and I'm glad that it worked. And I think that you give us the justification to add another layer to our neural network, recurrent neural network to make this work. So we're happy about that. Very happy about that, actually.
Well, thank you. We're so glad that you had this passion to build this machine and find this technology to make things a lot easier for the physicians as well. So,
well, Amy, you only have one life to live, and I guess, you know, I think it's Mark Twain said, 2 days in your life is very important. The first is the day you were born. The second, you find out why you were born. So I guess I've been through both days, and I'm very happy that we're here. At least I can contribute a little bit in a way that can advance our care for our patients. That's it.
Awesome. Well,
Thank you,
thank you.
Dr. Shen.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anytime.
All right.
I'm here. Email me and send me a text message. Say, hey, I have this question here, or go through the process and request for support, and we can send information in or encrypted, so I can give you a reply through our support app, and or just talk to me directly. That's fine too. I'm available. Literally, I'm online available in my waking hours. I sleep a few hours a day, so otherwise I'm available.
All right. Well, thank you so much again. And thanks for helping us with our training. And I know that we'll be talking more again.
Yeah. Remy, are you, is this okay now?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Dr. Shen. Have a good day.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye now.